Assalamu alaikum. Hi friends. In this video we will learn Newton's laws of motions. We will discuss inertia, first law of motion, unbalanced force, second law of motion with examples, and third law of motion with examples. So let's get started. Alright, I think it's important to understand inertia prior to the first law of motion explanation. Inertia is the resistance to change. Inertia is a natural characteristic of every body. Okay. To understand inertia, let's illustrate these examples. In example 1, we have a bus which is moving with a uniform speed, and suddenly after some time the bus stops. The riders of the bus feels a jerk in the forward direction. They feel the jerk because of inertia. Since inertia provides resistance to change in its state, that's why when the bus stops, the inertia tends the riders to move in the forward direction, as the bus is moving in a forward direction previously. So, and the friction tends to stop the bus. Thus, the riders feel the jerk. One important point should be noted here is that inertia is directly related to the mass of the object. In example 2, we have a massive truck and Mr. Lee is trying to push the truck in forward direction but fails to do this because massive body has a large amount of inertia, and to overcome that inertia we need a large amount of force. On the other hand, Mr. Lee can easily move that block, 2 kg block, because that block has very less inertia as compared to that block. So we can conclude that if a body has larger mass, it has large inertia. Now come to the first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion says that object continues its state of rest or uniform motion unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. Now here an important term, unbalanced force, should be considered. An unbalanced force exists when the vertical forces or horizontal forces do not cancel each other. Let's say this is a block of 10 kg. Of 50 newtons force is pushing the block in the rightward direction, and simultaneously another 50 newtons force is pushing the block in the left direction. As a result, both forces cancel each other and the block does not move. Now, if suddenly a third force comes and pushes the block from the downward, the block moves upward, because that, let's say this force is 12 newtons, because that 12 newtons force has no other component which cancel it. So this scenario is the unbalanced force scenario. Okay. So Newton's first law, we can conclude that the Newton's first law says that every object continues its motion forever unless it is acted upon by an external or unbalanced force. Now let's proceed to the second law of motion. The second law of motion says that acceleration is directly proportional to the net force and inversely proportional to the mass of the object. For the sake of simplicity, we can break the second law of motion in two major parts. One part is acceleration is directly proportional to the force and acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass of the object. Or by doing simple mathematics, we can say that acceleration is directly proportional to F upon A, or we can say F equals to M upon A. This is the mathematical representation of second law of motion. Okay, so let's consider some examples. Okay. In this example, we have a 10 kg block which is pushed by 14 newtons force. The acceleration is calculated here is 1.4 meters per second square. Now if we increase the force, that is 20 newtons, and force becomes 20 newtons, the acceleration is 2 meters per second square, and the block is accelerated, means it moves faster. Now if the force becomes 30 newtons, the block moves even faster, and the acceleration is 3 meters per second square. Now you can, as you observe the pattern, if we increase the force, the acceleration is also increasing, and if we decrease the force, the acceleration is also decreasing. Again, our condition is acceleration is directly proportional to force is proved. Now in second example, we have two different mass objects, that is one mass is 8 kg and another object mass is 10 kg. We apply same magnitude force on both blocks, 12 Newton and 12 Newton. Now see the difference in the acceleration. The body which has less mass has more acceleration, and the body which has more mass has less acceleration, which shows that acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass of the object. So this says that in Newton's the second law of motion. Okay, now come to the third law of motion. The third law of motion says that for every action there is always an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, if we consider an isolated system is a system which has no external force in and out, means none of the force can come inside the system, and none of the force can go outside the system. This is an isolated system. And if we have two objects over here, object A and object B, the force that object A exerts on object B is 10 newtons. On the other hand, as a reaction, the object B exerts the same force on object A but in opposite direction. So this is the action reaction. Another example of third law of motion is that we stand on a floor. The force with which the gravity pulls us is equal to the force with which the earth pushes us upward. That's why we stand still on the earth. So I hope that the video helps you in studies. For any queries, questions and feedbacks, comment below or email us at online_learning@outlook.com. Thank you very much for watching the video. Have a good day.